The need to be told you're exceptional is, itself, a very ordinary human need. What if everything you've been told about the signs of high intelligence is wrong? Not slightly wrong, built backwards. You've seen the lists, talks to themselves, overthinks everything, stays up too late, doubts their own ability, each one presented as a secret marker of unrecognized genius. Here's the detail that should bother you. Almost everyone, at some point, does every single one of those things. That detail rewrites the entire story, not about intelligence, but about why millions of people keep watching videos that promise their ordinary struggles are actually proof of something extraordinary. There's an entire genre of content built around a simple, irresistible premise. You might be smarter than you think, and your brain has been hiding it the whole time. Talking to yourself, overthinking conversations, staying up at 2 a.m. with your mind racing. Each behavior gets reframed, one by one, as evidence of a quietly exceptional mind. And to be fair, some of the underlying psychology is real. Self-talk genuinely supports working memory. The Dunning-Kruger effect genuinely describes a real asymmetry between confidence and competence. Highly intelligent people in some research do report finding shallow social interaction less satisfying. But here's what the mainstream version of this story leaves out. These traits are not rare. They are close to universal. Nearly everyone overthinks sometimes. Nearly everyone has had a 2 a.m. spiral of thoughts. Nearly everyone has doubted their own competence in some area of their life. This was never really a story about cognitive measurement. It's a story about what people are willing to believe about themselves when the right words are used to describe an ordinary Tuesday night. Everything seemed like a simple psychology checklist. Until you ask why this particular checklist became one of the most repeated formulas on the internet. Here's the first hidden fact. The signs of high IQ formula isn't really testing intelligence. It's testing for a much more common condition, being a self-aware adult with an active inner life. Picture the claim laid out plainly. Talking to yourself, a sign of genius. Overthinking decisions, a sign of genius. Staying up too late, a sign of genius. Doubting your own abilities, a sign of genius. Noticing tiny background sounds, a sign of genius. Stack those traits together and ask honestly how many people you know don't experience at least 3 of them regularly. Not a rare cognitive signature, a common psychological state, not a hidden marker of brilliance. A description of being human under normal stress. Not exceptional, ordinary, dressed in flattering language. This is not a coincidence in how these videos are written. It is, whether intentionally or not, a structural feature of the format itself. List enough common traits as exclusive markers of genius, and almost anyone watching will recognize themselves in several of them. That recognition feels like a discovery. It is actually closer to a horoscope. But here is where the story takes a darker turn, because one of the 3 sources breaks from this pattern entirely. And what it reveals is far more interesting than another flattering list. Ask yourself this. If high intelligence reliably produced the warm, validating experience described in most of this content, why would a Polish psychologist named Kazimierz Dabrowski, after decades of studying gifted individuals, conclude that many of them experience the world at a kind of permanently elevated psychological volume, one that makes ordinary existence harder, not easier? Dabrowski's framework, overexcitabilities, describes something genuinely different from a flattering checklist. Intellectual intensity that never quite turns off. Emotional intensity that makes empathy and grief equally overwhelming. Sensory intensity, where ordinary noise becomes genuinely difficult to filter out. This isn't "you're secretly a genius." This is a real, sometimes burdensome way of experiencing reality at higher amplitude. And alongside it, Dabrowski's research describes something the flattering listicles never mention: gifted burnout. The exhausting gap between the perfect outcome a sharp mind can vividly imagine and the much messier outcome reality actually delivers. Existential depression, rooted not in personal loss, but in confronting the scale and uncertainty of existence earlier and more intensely than most people do. Real intelligence is not a warm validation. It is not a list of charming quirks. Sometimes it is simply seeing more of what's actually there, and seeing more is not always comfortable. This is the part the algorithm-friendly version of this topic consistently leaves out, because validating content about hidden genius performs better than honest content about cognitive burden. One version makes you feel special in under 10 minutes. The other asks something harder of you, to sit with the idea that real intelligence, where it exists, is not primarily a gift to be unwrapped. It's a different operating system with its own genuine costs. Stay with me, because what comes next reframes the entire appeal of this genre. Here is the truth underneath the entire signs of hidden genius phenomenon. The world was told that recognizing yourself in these lists means you've discovered something true about your intelligence. The more honest reality is this: recognizing yourself in these lists mostly means you're a self-reflective person who has had a hard week, a sleepless night, or a moment of self-doubt, which describes nearly everyone who has ever lived past the age of 20. The world calls this content psychology. A more careful look calls it flattery, dressed in research language. The people who genuinely fit Dabrowski's more demanding criteria, the overexcitabilities, the existential depression, the gifted burnout, would probably just call it Tuesday. This isn't a condemnation of anyone who's ever watched one of these videos and felt seen. That feeling is real, and the underlying need behind it is real too. What deserves scrutiny isn't the audience, it's the format, a structure almost perfectly engineered to make ordinary self-awareness feel like secret exceptionalism. Because exceptionalism is a far more watchable story than you are a normal person having normal human experiences. The need to be told you're exceptional is, itself, a very ordinary human need. This isn't really a story about IQ tests or cognitive science. It's a story about why an entire generation of online content has learned that the fastest way to capture attention is to tell people their flaws are secretly their superpowers. The same pattern shows up everywhere now. Anxiety reframed as high standards, people-pleasing reframed as emotional intelligence, procrastination reframed as active processing. Some of these reframes carry real psychological insight. Many of them are simply flattery wearing a lab coat. If you've ever watched one of these videos and felt a small thrill of recognition, the more useful question isn't, does this mean I'm a genius? It's simpler. Am I drawn to this because it's accurate or because it's flattering? And would I still find it valuable if it described me as ordinary instead? Most people will keep treating the two as the same thing. Now you know they rarely are. What if everything you'd been told about the signs of high intelligence was wrong? Not because the traits aren't real, but because being human, with all its overthinking, sleeplessness, and quiet self-doubt, never needed a flattering label to matter in the first place.